Hey everyone, welcome to Gen X Marks the Spot. We are here with the Wednesday night newsroom. Tonight we have a special entertainment edition, but I'm here as always with my good friend, the Front Porch Conservative, Mr. Brian Trippitt. I'm 𝗚cy𝗹𝗵𝗂, and thank you for joining us tonight. If you've been on my channel, you know that I do pop culture, Gen X nostalgia, horror movies, politics, a little bit of everything. Basically, whatever I wake up in the morning and want to do. Kind of a hodgepodge channel. But thank you all for joining me, and I will now pass it over to my esteemed colleague who will tell you about himself and where to find him.
Who are you talking about? Who's this esteemed colleague? What do you say?
The dapper gentleman in the fedora.
Well, thank you very much. Folks, my name is Brian Trippitt, and I am known in social media as the Front Porch Conservative. I've got channels on Rumble and on YouTube, that quaint little alternative social media platform, don't you know? You can also find me on Twitter at the Front Porch C1. I do politics, pop culture, and, you know, the funny thing is I've got an uptick in topics to talk about ever since January 20th this year. I have no idea. Yeah, it's I don't know why. All of a sudden it seems like I've got more to talk about. It's just crazy. But if you like that sort of thing and you enjoy, you know, a feisty group of chatters, which I've got, Fedora Nation, come on over and hang out on my channel and, you know, become a member, subscribe. Would appreciate all that.
Absolutely. Well, and also welcome to our good friend from north of the border, Mr. Adams here from Canada. And we're awful glad to see him. Welcome.
Indeed. Good evening, sir. He is a master of the meme, as he provides me all kinds of stuff to be had and used. Let's see. No need for ankle bracelets. Oh, okay. That's
He's talking about turning God. Okay, well, that's our first topic. Trump announcing that we're going to assist with cleaning up Gaza. And at first, it was made to be clipped on YouTube, not YouTube, but X, that Trump wanted to actually take over Gaza and keep it as the United States possession. But I went and looked at the entire longer clip, and basically what he was talking about is we as allies, us and other Middle Eastern countries, taking control, cleaning it up, moving the residents out, cleaning it up, making a comfortable place to live, and then moving them back in. And then there'll be some sort of joint coalition to guard them, make that kind of a demilitarized zone. So that makes a lot more sense in the way it was framed originally.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, because when I first heard about it, my reaction was, oh, not just no, hell no. You know, I mean, the whole point of electing Trump was to extricate us not only from Ukraine, but from what's going on in the Middle East, so we don't have military assets or, you know, whatever down there, or we get sucked into a war.
Yeah.
But if it's and we talked about this briefly by text last night. If it's an issue that we have a coalition of nations working together, because let's be honest, the Gaza Strip has been under direct control of Hamas since 2005, and they have basically, like a bunch of gophers or groundhogs, burrowed so many tunnels underneath Gaza City and the Gaza Strip that they have basically, that and other things that they've done, they've ruined that land. Now, if we're talking about Israel, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon going into, or even Saudi Arabia, or some of the other more affluent nations of the Middle East, going in together and as a coalition paying for the cleanup and the restoration of the Gaza Strip, such that it's made better than what it was, okay, I can go along with that on two conditions. One, we aren't required to leave any military there. Once we clean it up, we're done. Number two, that Hamas cannot be allowed to rule the Gaza Strip ever again.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Well, I really think that's what Trump was trying. Now, honestly, I'm a little different. I wouldn't mind it being a U.S. colony. I'll just put it out there, because at least we would have access to the natural resources that are underneath there. There's a lot of natural gas. There's a lot of good stuff under there. And I'll quote a couple of comedians I saw today on Twitter saying we're just spitballing here, but Homologo, you know,
Oh, jeez.
Gar-a-Lago,
Gonzalago, yeah.
Lago.
Jeez. That's
So,
great.
but I would prefer it to be, an independent area where they can live, because right now it's a rubble pile, just like he was saying. It's a pile of rubble. No one can live there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really wants to break Hamas. We've got to break Hamas. We've got to get rid of we got to get the Houthis out of Yemen. We got a lot of stuff that has to happen, or the Middle East is going to continue to be the pain in everybody's ass that it is.
Well, I mean, and I like the way Trump's approaching this. I mean, and had he been allowed to go straight into a second term in 2021, he would have broken Iran, because he had, between Iran and China, he had them both in a position. Iran was financially destitute. And you'll notice in that period, there was very little violence and terrorism going on in the Middle East.
Mm.
Why? Because Trump very wisely cut off the money.
Yeah.
Now, in this, Trump's going at it on both ends. Cut the money off on Iran's end of it. On the other side of that, cut off Hamas from being able to make mischief in Israel. Hezbollah is more or less, to the north and more or less controlled at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
But if Trump can get Hamas at least reasonably under control, now we got the basis, maybe, between that and the resurrection of the Abraham Accords, maybe.
I know right now Saudi Arabia is screaming bloody murder. All the Arab countries are screaming bloody murder right now, but they'll bend the knee. They'll bend the knee.
Well, it's not even so much I'm worried necessarily about them bending the knee. The Saudis kind of have to scream bloody murder. They have to perform some theater here for the benefit of their Arab neighbors. But in the end, if I have a feeling, if you got the royal family of Saudi Arabia in a room and said, "Hey, you really all that upset about what Trump's doing?" I'm like, yeah, no, not really. He's really right.
He's investing $600 million in the United States.
Yeah. I mean, how upset could they possibly be?
He knows where the bread's buttered at least for the next 50, 100 years. He knows where the money is. And he knows that the only way that the Middle East is going to come out of the rut that it's in, with the exception of Saudi Arabia and the UAE, those are the only two modern-esque countries. All the rest of them are a couple of decades behind everybody else. Let's be honest. The only way they're going to do that is to get rid of Iran. That is, get not the people, but get rid of the current government.
Right.
Hopefully they can put enough pressure on them. There'll be some sort of revolution that will lead to a democracy, or at least another form of government everyone could live with, and also get rid of their terrorist activities. That is the only way that there's ever going to be stability in the Middle East, and Saudi Arabia is well aware of that.
Yeah, and I think if this gets timed just right, Trump's got an opportunity to see the fall of Iran in his presidency, because it wasn't that long ago they just had elections in Iran. Matter of fact, I'm trying to remember exactly when. Hang on a minute. I'm thinking it wasn't that many years ago. It was it was 2021. So no, whoever succeeds Trump, because I think they're on like a 10-year term, if I remember correctly. So whoever succeeds Trump will be the president that could, depending on let's put it this way, if a Republican like Trump, in terms of their foreign policy thinking, keeps applying the same kind of pressure on Iran after Trump leaves office, it's altogether possible you can see the fall of the Iranian regime, because it wouldn't take much. The people in Iran, at least as my understanding of it, detest their political leadership. They can't stand them.
Yeah, but they have no weapons. They have no way to organize, no free speech. They're kind of like the people of China. They're kind of shit up a creek.
Yeah.
No paddles. And I've often said, even dealing with Iran, dealing with China, even dealing with Russia to a certain extent, if you could find a way to empower the citizenry, it'd solve a lot of its own problems.
Oh, I know. And, I have to remind myself every so often, you got to let Trump think outside the box. I mean, is this plan he's talking about, is it going to happen? I don't know. I have no idea.
It's enough to get some negotiation. Maybe some of these other Arab countries say, okay. We don't want the United States on our doorstep. So maybe Egypt and Jordan sleeve off a little bit of land just off of Gaza and take all these people in until somebody can go in there and clean it up, and then you put them back.
Yeah. Well, but see, that's part of the rub of this plan is, okay, so it's going to take about 5 or 6 years to clean up and make the Gaza Strip habitable. What do you do with the population that was in the Gaza Strip? I mean, are you going to relocate them? Are you going to let them live there while you're trying to do it? I mean,
no,
what
you
do
have
you
to
do?
get them out of there. He's already said you have to get them out of there. You can't do what has to be done with people living there. Now, I've heard the term ethnic cleansing thrown around a lot on Twitter, and this is not an ethnic cleansing. No more than it's going to be a genocide. A genocide and ethnic cleansing are kind of the same thing. They're framing it as if Trump is like, that's this whole bogus articles of impeachment is because of all the dastardly deeds, and I'm quoting the guy. Dastardly deeds and ethnic cleansing was thrown around. This is taking somebody out of an uninhabitable area, locating them somewhere, and then fixing that up and putting them back is not ethnic cleansing. Do I really need to explain to these people what a true ethnic cleansing is? Go look at Rwanda. That's an ethnic cleansing.
Go look up Yugoslavia in the 90s.
Yeah.
You want to talk ethnic cleansing? Let's talk about that. Or Rwanda, any place like that you can mention. It's just
that's not an ethnic. There is no Palestinian people. There are people that inhabit the Gaza that have taken on this as their identity because they're they were controlled by the PLO and now by Hamas. All of these people are Arabs that originally came from other Arab countries.
Yep.
And they settled there. They're Saudis, they're Syrians, they're Egyptians, they're Turks, they're Jordanians. They're all.
Oh yeah. It's mind-boggling to me. And the thing is, they have no claim on that land. I'm sorry, they don't.
No, Israel won that land back. Okay, let's take the Bible out of it. We're both Bible believing here, and we believe that they do have the right to that all the way to the Mediterranean. But let's take that out of it. Israel has won that by combat more than one time.
Oh yeah.
They ceded it back just to keep the peace. Yep. So by right of conquest, that land belongs to Israel. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean,
so the most legitimate thing is for them to take it over, them to clean it up, and tell these people, you can live here as peaceful citizens, or we will deal with you.
Yeah. And even taking away the question of military conquest, there are strong legal arguments going all the way back into the 19th century as to why it is that land belongs to the Jewish people. I mean, lay aside the modern politics of today, military conquest, what the United Nations did. We're talking just straight international law. You can very easily argue that land belongs to the Jewish people. So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, getting back to Trump's grenade that he threw last night, because I don't think Netanyahu knew it was coming.
No, you could tell by the look on his face. He was like, "Oh," but you know what? I'm sure Netanyahu will agree to it.
Yeah, because
at least in theory, because this is going to bring some negotiation to the table. This is all the art of the deal, people. If you've read The Art of the Deal, you truly understand what Trump is doing. It's just like with Canada and Mexico. I don't think Trump would have imposed those tariffs, but his main goal for that was to get them to do what he wanted them to do and secure the border. Now you've got both of them yelling, "We were already doing that." I'm like, "No, you weren't." No, you weren't.
If you were doing it, he wouldn't have said it.
Right.
You know, I mean, Trump, in one sense, Trump is a very easy character to understand. And I use character advisedly. I'm not trying to disparage. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, Trump's not going to give you any grief for it. I mean, matter of fact, he made the statement, if I thought Joe Biden was doing a good job, I would never have run for re-election. Because I would have accepted what happened in 2020, even though I didn't like it, but I would have accepted it. He said, I knew Joe Biden wasn't doing a good job.
If he had if he thought Obama was doing a good job in either of his 2 terms, he would never have ran.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you are excelling at it, or in another context, if you're living up to the agreements that you've made with Trump, in whatever capacity Trump is dealing with you, as a businessman, as a president, whatever, then Trump's not going to give you any grief. He'll more or less leave you alone. He'll pat you on the back. He'll shake your hand. He'll call you a friend. Step out of line with what you're supposed to be doing, or you're not living up to the potential that you have, then Trump's going to give you all kinds of grief about it. And he'll apply whatever measures of pressure he feels he needs to get you to do what he wants done. I watched a clip recently of one of the people from Shark Tank. It's the lady, and I can see her face, and I can't think of her name. Yeah, Cochran. Thank you. She tells a story that, back in the day, she and Donald used to do a lot of deals together in Manhattan as far as
she's a big real estate mogul herself.
Yeah, big real estate mogul. And so she said, you want to know Donald Trump's absolute, past being a great salesman, his absolutely most brilliant strength? He can look at you and size up your weakness. And once he's figured it out, for right or wrong, you can hate it, you can love it, you can whatever, he will use that. He will exploit your weakness to get what he wants.
Yep.
So that's why I'm saying Trump is not that hard of a person to figure out. But the thing is, Washington's just not used to dealing with his kind of animal.
Yeah, exactly. And based on Trump knows what he's doing, let's talk about the fact that I stand corrected on Marco Rubio being Secretary of State.
I agree.
After what he did in Panama, getting him to withdraw from the China agreement, and now what he's done with El Salvador, getting them to take all the criminal deportees and deportees that other countries won't take, and put them in a place where they will not escape. I understand now what Trump was doing with Rubio. Rubio is of Cuban descent. He has Latin American roots.
Yep.
Trump is going after South America big time. He's going to get the Chinese influence out of South America. That's exactly what he's doing.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, and this is the amazing thing to me about Trump. Notice the neoconservatives in Washington, D.C., whether they're in the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. We've got to have military intervention. We've got to intervene militarily. Trump is accomplishing the same thing or more and never firing a shot doing it.
Yep. Not
one bullet comes out of a gun when Donald Trump accomplishes the exact same thing that the neoconservative and Rubio's a recovering neocon.
Oh, he is, but he has had one hell of an arc.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So Rubio's going to understand this. Maybe if Rubio were here, he would probably understand this better than anybody else when I say it. Trump's accomplishing the same thing or more that the neocons in principle want done and never fired a shot doing it. It's remarkable to watch.
He's teaming up with the right people.
Yeah.
His goal is to get the socialists out of power in Canada. He's already proven Trudeau is ineffective. I think the conservatives will take over in Canada as a result of the pressure Trump has put on them.
I agree.
I know the Mexican president is newly elected, but I think with all the pressure, he's going to get the cartel out of their government.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's going to bring South America back into our line of thinking instead of China's way of thinking, because China has been storing up all kinds of influence in South America, and the Democrats have just let it happen. And that's dangerous to have them in our basement. So he's going to get them out of there. He has connected with the Trump of Argentina. He is connected with who I consider the Trump of El Salvador.
Yeah.
And he's going to connect with every populist leader in South America to make that happen.
Oh, yeah. And right now, the populists have a toehold down there between Milei and Bukele in El Salvador. If Bolsonaro were still in power in Brazil, I'd feel, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm feeling pretty good about South America right now. If Bolsonaro were in Brazil, I'd feel a whole lot better about South America.
Argentina and El Salvador will help us get Brazil, and they may be powerful enough to get the communists and the socialists out of Venezuela.
Yeah. If that happens, we're cooking. We're really cooking.
Because Costa Rica is going to fall in line. Panama is going to fall in line.
Yeah.
He's already working with Panama, and, you know, all the little countries like that, or Bolivia, they're all going to fall in line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And speaking of falling in line, it is watch the dominoes go down here in the U.S. as it relates to my favorite new band, 𝗚 and the Doge Boys.
Oh, my God.
I am having the time of my... I mean, you and I have talked about this before in our past Wednesday night newsrooms. You know, and I've had other commentators listen to say the same thing. They get themselves a topic that they're ready to talk about, and by the time they're ready to talk about it, it's obsolete because something else is coming out. Now, for those of you who are not aware of what I'm referring to, over the past 3 or 4 days, 𝗚 and the Doge Boys, my new favorite band, have been stirring it up about this little known agency that is innocuous to look at it. USAID, U.S. Agency for International Development, right? Agency got started in the early 1960s under JFK. It's, you know, on its face, it's supposed to disperse monies and, you know, civilian aid overseas, yada, yada, yada.
In foreign markets. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, just all that stuff. And we're finding out now a $40 billion budget, which my first reaction was, what the heck are you doing with $40 billion? Oh, we're finding out what they're doing with $40 billion. And then today, 𝗚 and the Doge Boys are like, hey, why is an international aid agency giving $8 million to Politico, a news organization in the U.S.?
Over 236 transactions.
Yeah, and then you start looking beyond U.S. aid, and you realize, well, it ain't just $8 million they've gotten. They've got Politico LLC, which is a news organization, by the way, has gotten $32 million over X number of years from the federal government through various agencies, and we're all sitting here scratching our heads going, the heck is going on here? Yeah. And then you find, go ahead.
And then you found out that Reuters has been in on that.
Yeah. Thomson Reuters.
BBC.
Yeah.
Which is a foreign government-owned media network. And dare I mention what they said about Lauren Chin, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, because they took money from a Russian, not even a Russian government, just a Russian-owned media company.
Yep.
But yet our American government is funding the BBC.
Yeah. And well, I mean, take the BBC aside. You're talking, and not just Reuters and not just Politico. You're talking the Associated Press, and we're also finding out the New York Times has been getting money from the federal government, not from various agencies over any number of years, and we're all sitting here scratching our heads going, the heck is this?
New York Times is a publicly traded media company.
Yeah.
That's very left-leaning. All of these are left-leaning, every single one of them.
Yeah, you'll notice that no monies are going to any right-wing organizations.
You notice Breitbart's not getting any money. The New York Post is not getting any money. Fox News is not getting any money.
Washington Times, etc. You know, and I mean, we were talking about this backstage, but I really do believe it. We're on the edge. If the digging keeps going, we're on the edge of one of the biggest scandals in American history when the American, because I mean, you can say what you want to about Elon Musk and the Doge boys, but they're digging. And every time they find something, they're putting it out there and it's getting out in the public consciousness.
Yeah, they're not saving this up for one big 1,000-page, 10,000-page summary of what they found. When they find something, they're releasing that immediately. And so it's getting around, and people are going to remember. At least parts of it, people are going to remember. If you put it in a big old document, parts of it will get way lost.
Yeah.
But if you just release it constantly on new media, people are going to be so insanely incensed about it.
And keep in mind, all of this conversation that the American people are starting to have over, $8 million to Politico, X million dollars to this news organization is only because Elon and the Doge boys have gone into one federal agency, USAID. Imagine what happened.
One that wasn't even on the public's radar.
Yeah, no one's thinking about it. We're thinking
IRS, we're thinking Department of Ed, we're thinking FBI, CIA.
Yeah, we're all focused on these big agencies. It turns out USAID, among other things, it has been accused of being a front for the CIA.
It's a linchpin. It's a linchpin to everything else.
Yeah. Now imagine what happens. Now just set the table with that thought and then take it up another level. Imagine what happens when Elon and the Doge boys take their act on the road and they stroll down to, let's say, I don't know, U.S. Department of Energy or Department of Health and Human Services, or, name the federal agency. Imagine what happens when they start releasing, hey, we spent X millions of dollars on this, we spent X millions of dollars on that. Today at the White House press briefing, Caroline Leavitt, who, by the way, is fast becoming one of my favorite press secretaries, and not just because it's a Republican president. Caroline Leavitt, I heard about the fact that we're giving $8 million to Politico. President's already decided we're cutting that. We're announcing a cutoff of that.
Did you say that Politico couldn't make payroll this week?
It's funny you bring that up because I was thinking about it. Think back to the great scandals in American history. Usually it's not the scandal you find out about first. It's one leading event that leads you into the scandal. For example, it wasn't so much that, oh my God, we found out about the supposed corruption of the Nixon administration. No, it was one innocuous little burglary story at the Watergate Hotel. And out of that spun Watergate, a constitutional crisis, and the resignation of a president. The other day, and for those of you who are not familiar with what we're talking about, an email went out to all the employees at Politico.com because, strangely enough, they missed payroll. People were supposed to get paid. They weren't paid. And then Politico puts out an email, says, oh, we're very sorry about this. It's a glitch, yada, yada, yada. Well, that was on Tuesday. Today, we're finding out that Politico has been getting millions of dollars.
Where is it? Probably in the pockets of the executives.
Well, and not just the pockets of the executives, but, I have a legitimate question. If Politico's been getting $32 million over X number of years, I'd like for the books to be opened up on Politico. I'd like to know what their revenue sources are.
Me too. Because think about it. This is not, I don't know. They may have a physical building somewhere, but a lot of these online media agencies, they're just a website with remote staff members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of overhead except for maintenance of a website, payroll, taxes, that sort of thing. Where did all that money go?
Yeah. Where did all the money go? And here's
a lot of their employees are contractors, particularly their journalists. None of those journalists are employees.
Well, and here's the question that I've got. Has the federal government been making payroll for Politico for all these years?
Evidently.
I think that's a legitimate question.
Then they're paid government assets, and that's a constitutional crisis, and that you're muddling freedom of the press. We're not supposed to have a government-controlled media.
Exactly. And well, and that's an absolutely great point, because the press and the government are supposed to be separate of each other, and now you've got the government paying
not one, but at least 4 media agencies that we
at,
know of.
at least that we know of right now. Who else is on the take, so to speak? So I mean, this is, I mean, I think
and these are all new media except for the AP.
Yeah.
I mean, Politico and Reuters is old media too, but Politico is definitely
new media. Yeah. And I mean, I really do believe if they keep digging, the amount of stuff we're going to find out. I mean, I don't mean just even the most outrageous examples, like $5 million on a study of hamster sex. I'm not even talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about when we start finding out where our money's been going and who it's been paying. I think you're going to have a hue and cry go up across this country, and they're going to be like, when's the next election? I can't wait to go vote for the SOBs.
Now, I do want to address something about like the hamster sex. That's just, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not in favor of hamster sex, but except for hamsters.
Okay, well, all right.
But sometimes those little bitty studies, like it was the study of the adrenal glands in cows and horses that led to us being able to manufacture insulin. Some of those weird studies are for a reason, so I don't want to condemn them all. Now,
all right, fair enough.
The DEI opera, and where was it, in Guatemala, funding the reboot of Sesame Street in Iraq? Yeah, all that's out there.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, even beyond the most egregious examples of how our money is spent, when we start finding out that our money has been paying for certain things and paying to certain people, I mean, supposedly right now there's a rumor going around that some of these movie stars that went over to Ukraine over the past few years, and again, I have not seen this in print anywhere yet, but supposedly they've been receiving millions of dollars. And again, that's unverified. But if that's true, it's like, oh my God.
Well, it's just like backtracking a little bit. Zelensky saying, I didn't receive $177 million. I got $75 million. But I got all this equipment. First of all, Zelensky's just an idiot. Why is he even in control of a country? First of all, okay, yeah, $177 million. No, you didn't get $177 million cash. You got planes, tanks, ammo, fuel. A lot of that probably took up some of that, but still, there's still a deficit there. Where's all that money?
Yeah, $100 billion unaccounted for.
Yeah,
I mean, we've appropriated. I mean, I think that figure's low. I mean, I think it's upwards of like $250 billion that we have appropriated for the Ukrainian government.
Not just in cash. I mean, there's
not just in cash,
but some of it's not all accounted for.
Yeah, you got 100. I mean, he's sitting there. He's out there saying, "Yeah, I mean, you say you've given me $179 billion. I've only gotten $79 billion. I don't know where the other $100 billion's at." And I'm like, really? It's like, wow. I mean, if Donald Trump is genuinely serious, if he and his people are genuinely serious about transparency in government and telling the American people what's been going on, oh my God, everybody better get ready because their heads are going to explode. You're going to have people just pissed the hell off. And then the Democrats can't do anything. It could, because let's be honest about it. Biden was in there for 4 years. Yeah, the Republicans were in control of the House the last 2 years, but by and large, the Democrats got everything they wanted during Biden's
but it was a bunch of neocons, with the exception of a few. Yep. And before that, you had Trump facing a very hostile Congress.
Yep.
Mostly Democrats and neocons. And then before that, you had 8 years of Obama and Biden.
Yep.
So essentially, the Democrats have essentially been in control all this time until now.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And it's like, oh my God, it's just remarkable to me. I'm telling you, we're just now touching the edges of one of maybe the biggest scandals in American history.
Yep. Like I said, USAID is the linchpin that a lot of other stuff's going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you have Democratic Congress people who can do nothing more than rile people up to protest out in front of these federal buildings. I want to know where their insurrection charges are.
Oh yeah, you've got Edward Markey, senator from Massachusetts, Democrat, who's saying we need to have millions of people descend upon Washington D.C. Excuse me, I remember something about, what was it, 4 years ago now? Where about 250,000 people came to D.C. to peacefully protest, the certification of an election they thought was fraudulent, and that was an insurrection.
But yeah, you're out in front of federal buildings.
Yeah. Yep.
You're inciting people to come invade Washington.
Yeah.
Let's do I think that's what's great about what Trump's doing. He's not getting caught up in revenge. He knows his revenge is to do well and do exactly what he told the American people he would do. And that's what he's concentrating on. He's not going after his political enemies, at least not now. And he's just full steam ahead.
Well, and the other thing is, it's not just short term. I mean, you can't use all right, if we're not using the word revenge, let's just say short-term justification. Let's talk about the long term. If the American people see success from Donald Trump's policies, okay, and then you have someone in 4 years, and I think you know who I'm referring to. If in 4 years his successor follows the same policies, Trump is setting up a situation where, even just from an ideological standpoint, he can vanquish the Democrats for years to come. Because part of the reason that he was reelected is an unspoken contrast between himself and Joe Biden. Okay, you had 4 years of me, you've had 4 years of Joe. Who are you better off under? If he comes back with 4 years of success like he had during the first term, he's setting up his successor for another 4 to 8 years of Republican control of the presidency.
Oh yeah, if his successor does well, we could get all the way down to Barron Trump being old enough to run for president and winning it again.
Exactly. So I mean, and if the Republicans in Congress are smart, they're going to follow Trump's lead. And they're going to be like,
they're going to become MAGA. And any Democrats that don't just want to get swamped, they're going to get on board with MAGA too.
Well, you notice that John Fetterman voted for Pam Bondi.
He broke ranks.
Yeah. I mean,
I think he is legitimate in what he believes. I think he's a man of. I'm not saying that he's full on MAGA. I think he's still kind of a progressive, but I do think he votes his conscience. And also, he knows where his bread is buttered in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is quickly becoming a red state, red state like Florida. Yeah.
And that not just for Fetterman, but for the Democrats in general.
He'll be the Joe Manchin of
Pennsylvania. Yeah. If Pennsylvania in the next 2 to 3 election cycles winds up becoming like Florida, then the Democrats have a major problem going forward.
Either Fetterman becomes a Joe Manchin Democrat or he switches parties.
Well, there's that, but the other issue is this. Part of the Democrats' ability to hang on to, particularly the presidency, is predicated around, what they call the blue wall, which is
with Florida, Texas, and Pennsylvania being automatically in Republican. It's going to be very hard for them to win the Electoral College, and they're already working on flipping New Jersey.
Yeah, thank you. You just took me where I was going to go next. Is that if Scott Presler takes his efforts across the river into New Jersey and they start flipping New Jersey, I mean that's what. Let's see, Pennsylvania's 20 electoral votes. New Jersey is it's either 14 or 17. Yep. You're talking about 34, 37 electoral votes straight off of the Democrats' total. And that only leaves them with New York and California as the major anchors for their electoral success.
They'll have Washington, Oregon, Illinois, and New England.
Yeah. And I wouldn't count on New England for much longer either.
No, you're going to have New Hampshire may flip red before it's over.
New Hampshire, Connecticut. I mean, you got some states up there. They could go. Now, are they going to be like their southern counterparts? No, not necessarily.
They might be swing states, though.
They might be swing states. But yeah, I mean, The
And
Democrats,
I think
short and long,
Wisconsin may
they're in
go the
trouble.
way of Pennsylvania too.
Yeah, well,
Michigan might be the only one, but
yeah, but I mean, if the Republicans bookend Michigan and Wisconsin with, you know, and with Michigan in the middle, the Democrats have got huge problems going forward.
And they're certainly not worried about them. If you saw that DNC election,
oh God,
I don't want to get too far into it, but it was all DEI nonsense. You had 3 black women, and I'm obese. You had 3 obese black women. One of them up there singing about an old Negro spiritual as her speech. Tell everybody up there telling they need to listen to the 3 black women that are on stage. You had a obese Latina woman up there talking in Spanish half the time.
Yeah.
And then you had straight man, 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝗃, winning a vice chair. And in the end, what did they elect? They elected all white men and the one Latina chick.
Yeah.
And that Hogg is supposed to be the one that's going to win young men back to their party. 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝗃. Who's straight.
Supposedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, they have learned nothing. Local fire departments never endorsed GOP, just endorsed it. Yuck.
New York and Connecticut might be lost causes. They might get closer, but I think New Jersey is flippable.
No, yeah, Jersey's
and New Hampshire. And New Hampshire.
Jersey's very winnable. But I mean, and it might take a couple or 3 election cycles with Jersey, but it'll get there. But if Pressler keeps working Pennsylvania, New Jersey, there's no stopping him. Yeah. I mean, and do not discount the possibility of New York State.
Yeah,
it would be a stretch, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility. But
Eric Adams is totally working against Democratic fundamentals. He's working right with ICE. Right
now. And he's trying to keep his happy ass out of jail. Is what he's doing. I mean, you know, because I mean, going back to the DNC convention for their leadership, they've learned nothing. And not just them, the congressional leadership have learned nothing. They are totally ignoring the will of the voters. And the voters voted for Donald Trump to go in and do this stuff, and they don't get it.
Oh, yeah. And up in Connecticut, it's absolutely right. Staten Island is solid red, and that's a borough. Yeah. And that's a borough. And then all of upstate New York is solid red. It's just Manhattan and the other boroughs.
Yeah, and if Trump just keeps working, I mean, the coalition that Trump has got right now, Latinos, African Americans, young people,
Muslims, about half the Muslims.
Yeah. If he keeps that working and whoever succeeds him keeps building that coalition and building it on successful policy, there ain't no stopping. There's no stopping MAGA. Notice I didn't say the Republicans. I said MAGA.
Yeah, MAGA is across all party barriers and all party lines. You can't say it's Republican. Donald Trump would have run as an independent or as his own party if he thought he could have won, but with our 2-party system, you have to play the game. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's just amazing to me. Just amazing. We are living in some extraordinary moments in history right now.
Oh, it's fun. And I feel safe and secure now. I don't feel like I'm not worried. You know, when Trump said, somebody asked him, what about Iran trying to take you out? And he's like, I've left word that if Iran does take me out, which I don't think they will, but if they do, I've left word to obliterate them, which is a message right to the Ayatollah. Take me out, but we'll level. There will be a bomber over Tehran about 5 minutes later.
Well, somebody made a point. And I'll go ahead and name names. It was Alex Jones made a point, and I think it is worth considering. Yeah, I understand why Trump's saying that, but on the other hand, do you really need to say it? Because what do you want to bet somebody wouldn't try and take out Trump and frame the Iranians, and then all of a sudden we're into it with the Iranians? It's like, dude, we know how you feel. Cool it. It's like, serious, cool it. You know, don't feed the beast.
Yeah,
Right
I
now,
get
you're
it.
starving him.
But he's definitely a, security through strength kind of guy.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I mean, I don't necessarily object to what Trump said, but it's like, dude,
don't bait him. Yeah.
Don't bait the beast. You know. So yeah, amazing times to be alive. Extraordinary times to be alive.
All right. Well, with that being said, everyone, we're going to switch to the entertainment portion. We'll do a brief little ad break here. I am Tracy. I am Gen X Marks the Spot. You'll find me on X and on YouTube for all your best horror movies, politics, fantasy lore, and really anything that I wake up decide I want to do. But it's all fun. Dark history, true crime. You'll find me there. You'll also find my thoughts of the day over on X. And I will also turn it over to my good friend Brian over here, who is the Front Porch Conservative.
Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate being on the channel as always. You can find me on YouTube and on Rumble. You can find me on YouTube at Talking on the Front Porch. That's the name of my YouTube channel. And more simply, you can find me on Rumble at the Front Porch Conservative. I do politics, culture, and I also do interviews. And I've got 2 interviews coming up next week. One of them is on Monday, the 10th, with Dr. Robin McCutcheon. We're going to talk economics because this whole thing with the tariff war, or the supposed tariff war, is heating up. We're going to have some new numbers coming in this end of this week about the unemployment numbers in January, which, you know, I'm not going to get too excited yet. But okay, it's the first term. It's the first month of Donald Trump's new term. Let's see how everybody's kind of feeling out there among employers, whether they're hiring, holding off, what have you. And on Tuesday, I just confirmed before I came on, there is a YouTuber. His channel is called Vets Talking. He's a good friend of Mike Harlow's. Mm-hmm. I want to have him on, and actually I've got him. We're confirmed for Tuesday night, the 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking military matters. I want to get his take on Hexeth. I want to get his take on Greenland. I want to get his take on a whole bunch of things. And I am dying to get into a discussion with this young man. And we've been sort of stepping around each other now for a little while. But yeah, we've got him on Tuesday. So McCutcheon on Monday, Vets Talking on Tuesday. And, you know, I will have, well, actually Wednesday night of next week is the newsroom. So we'll be getting together. You know, I've got live streams. I got videos coming out. So please follow me, and I would appreciate it very much. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the hostess with the mostest.
All right. Well, we are now in the entertainment portion of this very special Wednesday night newsroom, where we're going to celebrate the birthday of the great Gene Hackman, which was actually last week, but we are still going to celebrate it by us discussing our favorite Gene Hackman movies. So if there might be one on this list that you haven't seen. There's a few on the list that I haven't seen. So it's definitely homework for me to go back and watch them, because Gene Hackman is truly an American treasure.
Oh, absolutely. Turned 95 years old last week. And last account that I had, he was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico in retirement. Hasn't done a film in 20 years. And Bonnie, yeah,
one of my favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. And for almost 40 years, that man has done great movies. He's done some stinkers. He's done some movies for the art. He's done some movies for the money. He's played about every role imaginable, and in some cases gave repeat performances to the characters that he did the first time around. French Connection's a good example of that. The Superman movies, etc.
Oh, he's done every genre you can think of: Western, comic book, comedy, action. Has he done horror? He's done some horror movies, some thrillers.
Yeah.
Just everything you can possibly think of. He's played villains. He's played good guys. He's been lead actor, supporting actor. He's done it all.
Yeah. He's played presidents and generals and cowboys and priests and preachers and, you know, everything,
civil
lawyers,
rights attorneys and detectives and
and everything in between, you know, just
scumbag attorneys.
And
The Firm is one of my favorite movies.
Oh God, yeah. The role of Avery Tolar
Yeah.
the morally compromised, tax attorney.
Who was
I mean,
still likable.
yeah, in the end, you still love the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But just gods. I was telling Tracy backstage. I was like, I'm sitting there rattling off a list of what I think are really great if someone said to me, it's particularly for younger people who are going to watch this live stream, they're going to be like, Gene Hackman, who is what? Give me a Gene Hackman movie. All right. What genre, what decade, what role do you want to see him in? Because I could literally, I've got a list that goes from the top
I
of the
like
page to the
comic
bottom.
book movies. Superman 1 and 2. Go watch it.
Go watch him. He plays a brilliant Lex Luthor. I want to see him in an action movie. All right, French Connection. I want to see him in a comedy. All right, The Birdcage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, name a movie. Name what? Tell me what you want.
I want to see a historical film. Bonnie and Clyde. Go watch it.
Geronimo. Another one. Yeah. Just what do you want, and we'll set you up. So with that, Tracy, if you want to start it off, your list of Hackman movies.
I did 10. I know you have more, so you'll start with 16. I'll start with 10, and we'll discuss it. Okay. At number 10 for me is the one from the early 90s. I think it's one of the best comedies to ever dang the big screen. It was of course, a remake of a French play called 𝗓𝗏𝗄𝗏. It is The Birdcage. And Gene Hackman does a brilliant 1980s, 1990s, stuffy, religious acting, conservative senator that gets put into a very compromising situation.
Yeah, I will confess, I've seen bits and pieces of The Birdcage. I have not watched the whole movie, but and the thing about Hackman in this movie, he's not even the lead role. He's playing a supporting role to Robin Williams and Nathan Lane.
And then he's also playing opposite Diane Weist.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, and Felicity Huff, not Felicity Huff. Yeah, Felicity Huffman. Callista Flockhart. She is, plays his daughter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just, the bits and pieces I've seen in the movie are hysterical. But yeah, the parts with Hackman in it are just pricelessly funny.
There's not a person in that movie that doesn't give their all. Hank Azaria stands out, and he just had a bit part as the Cuban butler.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, not to mention, I do remember Hank Azaria in that film. Absolutely fabulous, fabulous,
and just wonderful, funny slapstick, just beautiful. And it's basically the story of two flamboyant gay men. Theater people that their adopted son, it's one of them's biological son, the other one adopted, and they've raised him as their own. He gets engaged to the child of a very stuffy senator, conservative congressman, and they invite him to dinner, and they first try to hire the biological mom of the boy to come play the mother and get rid of very flamboyant Nathan Lane, because Robin Williams' character can kind of play the straight man. And so they decide they'll fake it, and then he feels bad and tells Nathan Lane he can stay. And so Nathan Lane, not to embarrass his son, which I think is one of the most beautiful, heartwarming things he can do, he dresses in drag and plays a very convincing woman during this dinner.
Yeah. Oh,
and Gene Hackman is just absolutely in love with her. In love with Nathan Lane's character, just adores her because she's exposing all these conservative values. His wife, played by Diane Weist, is getting jealous. And in the end, when they figure out he's a drag queen, the look on Gene Hackman's face is just priceless.
Oh, yeah. That would be great. That would be absolutely great.
You need to go watch the whole thing.
Okay. Fair enough. I've got a movie that is probably not one of the first ones that you think of with Hackman, but my God, the emotional range that he goes through in this film, The Chamber. It's a movie in the late 1990s. It co-starred Chris O'Donnell, Faye Dunaway, among others. It's the story of a man who is on death row in Mississippi and it's based on a John Grisham novel.
Mm-hmm.
It's the story of a man on death row in Mississippi, and it turns out that Chris O'Donnell, who plays the grandson to Hackman's character, comes to try to stop the execution of his grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what his grandson does, nothing's going to stop this execution. But it turns out Hackman's character is innocent of what happened. He just was there. And the reason that Hackman's character is going to the electric chair is he's protecting his brother Klansman. Okay. The emotional range that Gene Hackman goes through, because, I mean, Faye Dunaway plays Hackman's alcoholic daughter who was really messed up from everything that happened. Hackman starts out as this tough, Klan, Southern, I hate black people character, and the emotional range that Hackman goes through, reconciling to his daughter, reconciling to his grandson, and it's an amazing, amazing film. And like I say, if you really, and this is in the latter part of Hackman's career, but if you want to see acting chops on display, I really recommend The Chamber to you. It is probably one of the best pieces of work Gene Hackman did on the back end of his career. So yeah, I recommend it. Go watch it. So
definitely. And it's kind of a American History X, but not as not
as dark.
Right. So number 9 for me is 1972's The Poseidon Adventure.
Yes, great movie.
Which is one of the greatest, based on the novel from 1969 of the same name, about a passenger ship that gets capsized by an underwater earthquake and the resulting tsunami. Gene Hackman plays one of the 5 lead roles. He is a reverend that ends up being the one trying to lead them all to safety.
Yep.
Because there's only one escape route, and it's underneath the hull of the ship. And so he tries to lead them out. And the special effects for this movie were just absolutely groundbreaking for the time, I think.
Yep.
And forget Titanic. This is the ultimate sea disaster film.
Yeah. 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 And that cast, and not just Hackman, but you had Ernest Borgnine, Shelley Winters, Red Buttons, Leslie Nielsen, Roddy McDowall. I mean, this was a who's who of Hollywood in this film. It just, let me think of who else. Jack Albertson was in it. A very young Susan Day. Partridge Family, L.A. Law. Yeah, it's just great. And Hackman's character, no, I'll let you keep on telling it. I don't want to suck up the oxygen in the room, but yeah, Poseidon Adventure is a great film.
Well, basically, within it, like I said, it's your typical sea disaster film. The captain ignores warnings that there's been some underwater earthquakes. They end up getting caught up in one. The tsunami capsizes the ship, and then you have the typical drama where Scott which is Gene Hackman's character, is trying to lead everybody to the engine room. They're trying to get inside a ventilation shaft. There's all kinds of drama with Shelley Winters' characters dies of a heart attack. Just it's kind of like no one really gets a happy ending, unfortunately, because I mean there are survivors, but no one gets a really happy ending because you see some of the characters die one by one, and it's just a great disaster movie. I mean, what can you really say? Disaster movies are kind of all follow the same formula. Some people live, some people die, and then heroes emerge, and then stupid people also emerge. So, but basically, it's really, really good.
Oh, very, very true. Very true. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Again, there's been a remake of it with Josh Lucas, Kurt Russell, etc. But I'm sorry, if you want a good Saturday night movie, you want the original Poseidon Adventure. And like I say, Hackman's character as a progressive preacher on this ship, he is just, oh God, he's just amazing. I mean, the movie is like what, 50 years old now, plus 50 years old, but it still stands the test of time. It's just great.
When I say survivors, I mean there's one survivor.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's just a really great film. I've got one that again is on the back end of Hackman's career, but I would recommend it to anybody, and it's called Heist.
I have not seen that one. You'll have to.
I really recommend it to you.
All right.
And I'll tell you why. First of all, it's a David Mamet film, and you've got Gene Hackman, Danny DeVito, Delroy Lindo, Rebecca Pidgeon, among others. Sam Rockwell's in the movie too. It's the story of an aging thief who gets a crack at one more job, and it's a good one. Solid gold. Not just the job, the heist. And it's got so many great twists and turns in it. I mean, Hackman plays the leader of this band of thieves, and he is just cagey and smart, and there's trapdoors, and when I say trapdoors, I mean there's twists and turns in the actions of each character that just absolutely make this film a load of fun. If you love a movie that, exercises your little gray cells, as Hercule Poirot would have said in an Agatha Christie novel, then you want to watch this movie. It came out in 2001, and it was overshadowed by another film of its kind at the time, The Score, with Robert De Niro, Marlon Brando, and Ed Norton. And it's a shame because if The Score hadn't come out with the actors that it had in it, I would argue Heist, which is the Gene Hackman film, would have done a whole lot better at the box office because, frankly, from my perspective, Heist is better than The Score. It really is. Plus, you don't have all the, cattiness of three method actors in a film together. So enough of that. But yeah, Heist, Heist, I recommend to you. I got a feeling, Tracy, you would love that film.
I'll check it out.
All right. Back to you.
Next on my list is 1974's, and it's a stretch to even call this a Gene Hackman movie because he's only in a couple scenes, but they're memorable. And the whole movie is one of my favorites, and that's Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein from 1974.
Oh, God, yes. God, yes.
It's Mel Brooks' take of the Frankenstein legend, of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and it is in typical Mel Brooks fashion. Both offensive, and the funniest thing you've ever seen at the same time.
Oh, so true. So true.
I still see Terry Garr going, I want to take a roll in the hay. Roll, roll, roll.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people, given the way Terry Garr looked back in the day, a lot of people wanted to take a roll in the hay with her.
Yeah.
Just
Young Frankenstein and Mr. Mom, she looked fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's still a hottie patati. When she played, even into the 90s, when she played Phoebe's mom in Friends, she was still hot.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. But yeah, but where did you get this brain? Oh, I got it. It had a jar. It said Abby Normal. You got me an abnormal brain. Gene Hackman was trying to choke out. Oh God, what's his name?
Got Igor. I can't think of his name.
I know. I'm just like you. Hang on.
Here.
Young.
Here, I'm looking for.
I got it. Marty Feldman.
Yep.
He tries to choke out Marty Feldman. It's like, oh my God. I do have a side story about Hackman. How Hackman got into that film.
Okay.
Hackman and Gene Wilder were buds, and Oh, thank you, Lana. Appreciate it. Yep, Marty Feldman played the role of Igor. Hackman and Gene Wilder were good friends, and Hackman came to Gene Wilder and said, I'd love to do something in a Mel Brooks movie. And so Wilder's, talking to Mel Brooks, and they're like, where could we put Gene in this film? And he's like, well, I don't know. He's like, hey, what about the part of that priest? And, Mel Brooks was like, I was thinking just the exact same thing. And that's how it happened.
Yep.
They're all kind of thinking the same thing. It's like, yeah, he wants to do some comedy. All right, let's let him do some comedy. Let's see what he's got. And how long was he on screen in that scene? Maybe 5-10 minutes?
Less than 10 minutes. I think it was 3 scenes. It might have even been just 1 scene now that I think about it. But it's just, he played a blind guy. And
yeah,
that's pretty much it. He played a blind guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just, the Hackman was absolutely hysterical. Wait, where are you going? I was going to make espresso. It's like, oh God.
You make you wonder how all these great actors end up in Mel Brooks movies, like Harvey Korman in Blazing Saddles. How does he end up with all these classical actors?
Well, and not just Blazing Saddles. Harvey Korman was in History of the World Part 1, and
Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Oh, I did not realize Harvey Korman was
Van Helsing. Not Van Helsing, but he was Mr. Seward.
Okay, all right. Now I'm going to have to go back and watch Dracula Dead and Loving It. I did not realize that Harvey Korman was in that film at that point. Oh my gosh, that's funny. That is funny. Oh goodness me, yeah. If you want a load of laughs, just find Gene Hackman's part. It was about midway through that film, I think.
Yeah,
something like that. About midway through that film, and you will just laugh your butt off because Hackman's brilliant, just brilliantly funny.
The one was when Gene Wilder yells at the monster, "Hey, handsome!" and the monster just,
Peter Boyle as the Frankenstein monster, or the dance scene. It's just absolutely wrong in so many different ways, and you will laugh your butt off. That's the glory of a Mel Brooks movie from the 70s. Just wrong in so many different ways, and you can't stop laughing. Oh me, oh my. Well, all right. If back to me, then I got another one that is not one of those that you immediately think of with Gene Hackman, but God, he was brilliant. It's called Bat 21.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie so you're familiar with it?
I'm familiar with it. I think I've seen it once. Okay. I don't know that I know it really, really well, but I've heard of it. I've seen it once.
Bat 21 was made in the 1980s, I think. Give me a second here, and I'll tell you exactly when. Yeah, here it is. 1987. 88, I'm sorry. Directed by Peter Markle, and it's based on a novel by William Anderson. It co-stars Danny Glover and Jerry Reed, interestingly enough, the country musician. And apparently it was Jerry Reed's production company that produced the film. It basically tells the story of a U.S. air navigator, it's played by Hackman, who's on his traveling somewhere by helicopter over the Vietnam jungle. He's shot down, and he knows he's got to get to a location in order for him to be evac'd out of where he is. But the thing is, this guy knows so much that if the Viet Cong got their hands on him and interrogated him and sweated out the information he's got, this guy could wind up screwing up every bit of military effort that the U.S. has got in that particular section of the Vietnam theater. Danny Glover plays a pilot who is constantly going back into the theater to try to help this guy because, Hackman got his hands on a hand radio. This guy, they found each other. But Hackman does something very clever in the film. In order to let everybody know the route he's traveling without giving up his position to the Viet Cong, he describes golf course holes. Okay, I'm taking number 8 Pimlico. I'm taking number 8 Pebble Beach. And then I'll be on the 9th hole at St. Andrews. And then from there, in other words, feet and yardage to tell everybody where he's going. And it's a really clever, well done film. Again, Hackman is playing a character that is just absolutely great. You know, trying to survive while being chased by the Viet Cong, and because the character he plays is not necessarily a soldier out in the field. You know, he's one of these guys in uniform, but he's not, hardcore soldier. And now he's trying to survive to get back to civilization. And all three characters, Gene Hackman, Danny Glover, and Jerry Reed, give great performances. So again, it's one of those that's not necessarily you think immediately of a great Hackman film, but it really shows off his acting skills. So I really recommend it to anybody who wants to watch it.
Absolutely. Check that out.
And with that, to number 7.
For me, number 7 is very similar to one you've already mentioned, starring Mr. Gene Hackman. But mine is 1986's Mississippi Burning.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
He plays FBI Detective Anderson, who is a former Mississippi sheriff's deputy who is sent with his partner, Agent Ward, who's your typical by-the-book FBI agent, to investigate the disappearance of 3 civil rights workers. It's based on an actual true occurrence that happened in Mississippi. 3 civil rights workers were basically signing up black people to vote, and they got disappeared by members of the KKK that were entangled in the local sheriff's department. And a lot of murders went on in Alabama, Mississippi during the civil rights. It's a very dark time to be from Alabama or Mississippi.
Yep.
But Gene Hackman's character grew up there. He was a Southern sheriff, and he uses his Southern ways to kind of get in good with the locals and able to help solve the case. And if you want a good mystery and a good, fairly accurate historical portrayal of something that really happened, Mississippi Burning, it's also a tearjerker.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Hackman is just, as a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, Hackman was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Mississippi Burning, but lost to Dustin Hoffman when Hoffman portrayed his role in Rain Man. But yeah, that was how good. I mean, for those of you who've never seen this film, particularly younger people who've never watched Mississippi Burning, you really need to go see this film. I mean, be it Netflix or Amazon somewhere, you need to download this one and watch it because it's just that. And
William Dafoe plays the other FBI agent. He's also really, really good.
Well, and the rest of the cast. I mean, you've got Frances McDormand, Brad Dourif, R. Lee Ermey, Stephen Tobolowsky. I mean, you got a blue slew of great actors, but Hackman is just the anger that he channels in that role, because he goes from Southern good old boy to mean SOB in just a heartbeat.
Real quick.
The scene toward the end of the movie between Hackman and Brad Dourif in the barbershop, I won't say any more about it other than that, but it is just, you want to see one man give another man an ass whipping, that's the scene you want to go watch.
It's 2 different, he almost plays 2 different characters. There's his character before they find the bodies or the remains of the bodies, and then there's everything after that. And that's when he takes the turn into mean SOB. Oh,
yeah. And you get a prelude of that. And for those who've never seen it, forgive me, because I will give one little scene that's gone. There's a scene where Hackman goes into this private drinking club, which was not uncommon in that period in the South, especially in a dry county, which supposedly that was. And this gentleman with certain sympathies towards certain three-lettered Southern organizations, KKK,
named after the Greek alphabet.
starts giving Gene Hackman's character some grief. Well, Hackman grabs this guy in a certain part of the male anatomy that one should not grab, and proceeds to give him like a 30-second speech, and you realize, oh, this guy's going to turn into a mean SOB later on in this movie. And it's just
then they find the remains of the civil rights activists, and he turns.
Yeah.
And the whole conversation between Ward all the way up to he was discussing it. I don't know if it was J. Edgar Hoover. I think it was J. Edgar Hoover, and he was also talking directly to LBJ, because LBJ had made it was like, when this really happened, LBJ wanted to make a point of solving the case, because so many of these cases during the Civil Rights, because the Civil Rights Act was LBJ's big legislation, and the states weren't doing anything about the murders of all and the disappearances of all these civil rights. You had these three that were portrayed in Mississippi Burning. You had Medgar Evers also killed in Mississippi with no one. Had the assassination of not MLK, but
Malcolm X.
Malcolm X. All of this, nobody was giving this stuff any credence.
Yep.
The states weren't doing anything about it. So LBJ wanted to make an example, and he put this into federal jurisdiction because they did it on a violation of civil rights, not necessarily murder. And he wanted to make a case for this. So he was in constant contact with these agents when they were in the field investigating this. And that's actually portrayed very well in the movie.
Yep. Yeah, truly. I mean, again, if you want to see this guy's acting chops, then yeah. I mean, again, there's not a bad movie that, well, let me rephrase that. There's been some movies that Hackman's done that were absolute stinkers. But most of his career, if you want a good example of a really good actor and you want to see somebody with extraordinary talent and range, and you want an example of what Gene Hackman can do, Mississippi Burning is absolutely one of the movies you've got to watch. You really do.
He's somebody that was born in California and raised in Illinois. He plays a hell of a Southerner.
Yeah, he really does. Really does. I totally agree. Totally. Well, for my number 7, again, not necessarily one of the first movies that you think about with Gene Hackman, but the movie is a load of fun. 1991's Class Action, where he co-stars with Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, Lawrence Fishburne, Fred Dalton Thompson, Donald Moffat. Great film. It's basically the story. Hackman plays a very famous trial lawyer, Jedediah Tucker Ward. He is a people's lawyer. He is I'm trying to think of what actual lawyer you compare him to. I don't know, maybe a Jerry Spence or what have you. Typical liberal from the 50s and 60s, and just absolutely amazing film. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio plays his daughter, corporate lawyer, defending corporate interests, that sort of thing. Well, it turns out they wind up getting on opposite sides of each other in this courtroom case involving a automobile that contributed to X number of deaths. And it is it's got moments that are touching. And because in the film, the mother, and I want to say it's played by Olympia Dukakis, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Hang on. Give me 1 second here.
This is one of those really good 1990s or not late 80s, early 90s comedies.
Yeah.
Slash dramedies would be more of a.
Yeah. Joanna Merlin plays the role of Hackman's wife in the film. And it's really, really good. I mean, it's comparable to Legal Eagles, Robert Redford and Daryl Hannah, but it's got a lot of heart to it. Lawrence Fishburne plays a wonderful job in a supporting role. and it's a movie that's a lot of fun, and you get to see one thing about Hackman, and I think he confessed this throughout his career. He draws on a well of, he would call it anger, I would call it passion. And if you really want to see some of that on display, you need to watch Hackman in this film. It's really a good movie, and he is just right on the top of his game with this. A lot of fun, just a load of fun to watch. So yeah, you want a good Saturday night movie, pop some popcorn, pull this one in. It's called Class Action. I recommend it to you.
Well, my number 6, keeping on the lawyers and attorneys theme, 1991's The Firm, based on the novel by John Grisham. Now, I have read all of John Grisham's novels, and I can tell you that the novel's much better than the movie, but the movie's good. No two ways about it. Gene Hackman plays 𝗂𝗍𝗄𝗏. Mitch McDeere, played by Tom Cruise's mentor, who is a drunken, money-obsessed tax attorney. But he plays him so likable. And basically, the whole thing is uncovering a plot, that a thread that is pulled by Mitch McDeere, because he's being basically harassed by Ed Harris, who's an FBI agent, to go undercover in the firm, which is one of the most prestigious firms in the country. He makes a lot of money. They help him get a house. I mean, he and his wife are living the good life because of this firm, but they are also a front for the mob. They are the money laundering operation and tax attorneys for a mob boss, and Mitch McDeere is drawn into that. And unfortunately, 𝗂𝗍𝗄𝗏 is, neck deep in it. It's got an all-star cast from Hal Holbrook to Gary Busey, Holly Hunter, who else? Stephen Hill, Paul Sorvino. It's just one of those all-star ensemble movies, and it's great.
Oh, absolutely. If I remember correctly, The Firm was the first adaptation of a John Grisham novel.
It was, and the very first, followed by The Pelican Brief, and then it was off to the races.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Then you had The Rainmaker and a blue slew of Grisham novels that got turned into. I mean,
The Chamber, which is, I think you've already mentioned.
Yeah. You could make an argument that at one point John Grisham was to American film what John le Carre was throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, etc. And
what's another novelist that Michael Crichton was one that they turned. Right. It was Michael Crichton of the 90s. Yeah. What Michael Crichton was to the 2000s, John Grisham was to the 90s. And what's the one that was so big after that? John Krasinski played the spy in the TV.
Oh, Clancy?
Tom Clancy. Yeah. Definitely John Grisham would fall into the same thing as Michael Crichton and John Clancy.
Absolutely. The Firm is another one of those really good. If you want a movie that keeps you on the edge of your seat thinking, and you like a lot of plot twists and a lot of fun, because these actors were enjoying chewing up the screen together. Mm-hmm. But getting back to Hackman specifically, he plays this morally compromised attorney, but you've got to love this man, because the redemption arc on this guy is just incredible. It really is.
In the end, he lets Mitch McDeere get away with the information that he's getting away with, and then you're led to believe he might have committed suicide or they might have killed him. It's a little ambiguous.
Yep.
In the book, it's pretty clear he was murdered, but in the movie, they leave it pretty ambiguous. Did he take his own life? Did the mob get him? We don't know. But in the end, he lets Mitch McDeere get away with the information that he needs to get away with to bring the firm down.
I would have given a lot, given who starred in this film. I'd have given a lot to just be a guy working on the sets and to hear the conversations between these guys in between takes, because that these guys, I mean, you got different generations of actors, because I mean, Cruise at this stage of his career was like on the upswing.
Yeah, very young.
And Hackman was already so well established.
You even got Wilford Brimley.
I forgot about it. Yeah, Wilford Brimley's in this film.
Crusty security guy, and all I could think of was diabetes.
Oh god, yeah. Oh yeah. Jeez.
Hal Holbrook, household name.
household name by that point. Film, stage, television. Yeah, I'd
Holly
give it.
Hunter.
Yeah, and Holly Hunter was smoking in that movie. I ain't gonna lie.
And
I
Gary
am not.
Busey was just Gary Busey. I
Oh,
enjoy
God.
him in anything that he does. I know he's batshit crazy, but I enjoy
Yeah,
him in
pretty much.
everything that is.
Yeah, he's pretty much yeah. He's BSC for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, again, if you want a really good Saturday night movie, pop some popcorn, pop this one in. You will get quite the kick out of it. It's
Jean
just
Tripplehorn, who played Mitch McNear's wife, Tom Cruise's wife in that movie, she
Yeah.
kind of disappeared after that.
Yeah, I mean, she did that one and then did Basic Instinct, and then after that, she's kind of like gone.
Oof.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So for me, my number 6, if I've got to choose, oh gosh, here's a fun sports movie, and again, it came on the tail end of Hackman's career, and it's probably a movie that everybody has seen at one time or another. But 2000s, The Replacements, great movie with Keanu Reeves, Orlando Jones, Jon Favreau is in this film, Rhys Ifans, great British actor. You had Jack Warden, his last film appearance before his death. Hackman plays this old school, old style NFL coach. The story revolves around the NFL going on strike. There are 3 games left in the regular season, and the team, the Washington Sentinels, because we can't use the term Redskins, in this fictional movie, if they win 2 of their remaining 3 games, they could go to the playoffs. So the owner of the team, Jack Warden, brings back Gene Hackman's character, whose name is McGinty, and they share a past where, okay, the owner previously had messed over Gene Hackman's character, but okay, you're giving me a shot to coach again. It's a great film with a lot of heart. It's a load of fun. It's a great comedy. And the supporting cast around Hackman is just hysterical. Jon Favreau's character, you will appreciate defensive football players after you watch Jon Favreau. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, this is a really, really great movie.
I remember it very well. It's basically players that cross the picket line to play professional football.
Yeah, and it's one of those deals. It's like these guys get to live a dream. That, I mean, you know, I guess one of my criticisms of modern day big time sports, you have guys getting paid millions of dollars, and this is particularly true of baseball, which is my biggest beef. You have guys getting paid millions of dollars a year to play a game the kids would play for nothing. And that's kind of what this movie, you know, gets into a discussion of. Here are guys who will never, ever see the field again after the strike is over. Okay. But they get a chance in the most unconventional manner and the most unconventional way.
And very unpopular way with the other NFL players. People that they have probably idolized, you know, the entire time the other players have been playing, they probably idolized these guys, and they're taking their place because they crossed a picket line. So they're putting themselves into a very precarious situation.
Yeah,
which makes it even better.
And Rhys Ifans' character, the kicker, is just pricelessly funny. And watching Hackman, you know, as the head coach of this team, manage these crazy, not even the egos, because I mean the egos belong to the regular NFL players, their multi-million-dollar contracts, etc. But watching Hackman as the coach try to navigate all this crazy is just a load of fun. And Hackman, the scenes between Hackman and Jack Warden are great. They're brief. There's not that many of them, but God, they're good. So again, you want a fun movie, a good fun sports movie that men and women can enjoy together, pop this one in. You will get a kick out of it.
Well, my number 5 will piggyback right off yours. Another lighthearted 2001 romantic comedy starring Gene Hackman, Sigourney Weaver, and Jennifer Love Hewitt, Heartbreakers.
Yeah.
Basically, Gene Hackman cons the con artist. You have a Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt are a mother-daughter con artist team. They get involved with wealthy men and then con them out of their money. And then in the end, Gene Hackman cons them out of some of their money, and meanwhile getting the girl, as in Sigourney Weaver. Also stars Ray Liotta as a not-so-likable FBI agent. Just a fun, typical early 2000s romantic comedy.
Yeah,
not a very deep story, but it's good.
I will admit I've not seen this one, but Hackman, as with all things, plays this one well. He plays if I remember correctly, a CEO of a cigarette company.
Right.
And he's constantly puffing on
a cigar, but yeah.
Cigar. Okay. Yeah. Cigar company. He's constantly puffing on something, and but yeah, again, one of those movies with Hackman. Again, you want an actor that can do just about anything. You want a good example of his comedy range? Watch this one.
Yeah.
He's just really good.
Typical rom-com.
Yep.
Will they, won't they? And in the end, they will, but he also cons them out of their money. So.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and just very, and again, you have actors of three generations. You've got Hackman, you got Sigourney Weaver, and you got Jennifer Love Hewitt, and they blend very well in this film. The parts of it I have seen, they blend very well together in this, and they do Absolutely. A lot of good work off of each other. So, for me, my number 5 is one of my all-time favorite movies. I don't care how many times I've seen it. I don't care when it's on. I will stop and watch this. Hoosiers. Without a doubt, to me, one of the greatest sports movies that you will ever see. Came out in 1986. For younger people who are watching this live stream, and maybe you've seen it or you've heard about it, but you never really watched it, this is probably one of the most inspirational movies you're ever gonna watch, regardless of whether it's sports or not. Hackman plays a coach named Norman Dale, who is traveling to a small, and I mean very small, high school in Indiana in the 1950s, and it's based on a true story, by the way, to take up the offer to coach the boys' high school basketball team under very mysterious background. This guy has been out of the game for a while, coaching that is, but you don't quite know the why. And you've got a cast around him. Dennis Hopper, who was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. You've got Barbara Hershey. You've just the kids themselves. I shouldn't say kids. They're probably young college players, but it's just a great movie with a lot of heart. And if there are any number of themes that come out in this film: redemption, loyalty, love. It's just a great, and if you want an understanding of what basketball is like in the state of Indiana, and you don't want to go to an Indiana Hoosiers basketball game, watch the movie Hoosiers, because it's just a great film. But any thoughts on that one, or I don't want?
I mean, it's a classic. I mean, I rank it right up there with the Lou Gehrig story, The Babe, Rudy. Field of Dreams, any of the great sporting movies. I'm a sucker for a good sports movie.
Yeah, and yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, and one of my favorite sports movies that doesn't get a whole lot of play because it was not well known, but that is The Program. Also, I think belongs in that.
Yeah.
That genre too.
And the irony about Hoosiers is a couple of things. Number one, Hackman took the role not even for just basically money. I mean, he was for various reasons, but he even told friends of his, he said, I expect this movie to tank. It's not going to do any good at the box office. And I think Hackman was surprised with how well the film was received, but even its longevity of good feeling that it engendered him as an actor, because even toward the tail end of his career, when he'd be interviewed by people, he was surprised at how much people genuinely loved the film Hoosiers. And he just, when he made it, he thought, oh, okay, I'm doing this for a paycheck. I mean, according to his stories, he was just a pain in the rear end of the director, you know. But when it was over and he saw how well it was received, I think it's one of those moments as an actor. It's like, you know, sometimes you do a film and you just never know what kind of reaction you're going to get. But with Hoosiers, that movie was made, came out in 86. So we're talking 96, 06, 16, going on 40 years. People still love that film. And I would argue it's the best basketball movie you're ever going to get to watch. And the time frame in which it's set, the 1950s, is a throwback to a much simpler and a much better era. So again, pop some popcorn, get on the couch on a Saturday night, watch this one. You'll get quite the kick out of it.
Well, for me, number 4 is 1994's Enemy of the State, starring Gene Hackman and Will Smith in a buddy action flick. Also stars Gary Busey's son, Jake, as well as John Voight. Basically, it was a pretty much taking on the subject of the Bush administration allowing the NSA to spy on citizens. Basically, you had that very same bill introduced by a fictional senator in this movie. And basically, he wants to kill the bill. He ends up hiring Gene Hackman's character and Will Smith's character, who are spy experts, and they end up going on a caper, which in the end basically implicates the congressman in some dirty dealings. And in the end, the bill is killed. But then they try to prosecute Gene Hackman and Will Smith, but in the end, they are Will Smith is exonerated, but Gene Hackman's character gets away with all the money and ends up on a tropical beach somewhere, retired at a very young age. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's funny because the character that Hackman plays in
Brill, I think.
Brill is actually I think either a composite or a takeoff of a character that he played in a different film many decades earlier, which I have not seen, but I would love to, because it's just one of Hackman's supposedly best works. Yeah, okay, I'll try and refrain from doing that going forward. But it's based on, or he based his character on another film called The Conversation. But Hackman in Enemy of the State is just amazing. He's not on screen a lot, but God, the scenes.
It's a Will Smith movie that happens to have Gene Hackman in it, but it's still good.
Well, and a funny story about that. When they were doing the promotional interviews, Will Smith confessed to being scared to death to do his scenes with Gene Hackman, because he's like, oh my God, I'm going nose to nose with Gene Hackman in a scene. And they told Gene Hackman this after the fact. He's like, oh, that's just rubbish. That's ridiculous. I don't know what he's worried about. I mean, we're just doing a job. And that was the difference in them and their careers at that point. Because, Will Smith was just starstruck, thinking, oh my God, I'm about to run lines with Gene Hackman, and Hackman's like, we're doing a movie, and this got this job, and it's no big deal. It's just that exchange between the two of them is just absolutely pricelessly funny, Oh, but yeah, a great movie, absolutely great movie. Yeah, I mean, Hackman's not on screen a lot in that movie, but God, the scenes he's in, he's just chewing up scenery. He's just absolutely amazing in that role. I agree totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, number 4 for me is actually kind of like the follow-up to another movie, which one of us is going to get to, because if this movie's not on our list, I'll be shocked. The Quick and the Dead. Movie made in the latter, here it is, 1994. The cast is extraordinary. Sharon Stone, Gene Hackman, Russell Crowe, a very young Leonardo DiCaprio, among others. And it's basically the story of Hackman plays a character, John Herod, who is basically, he and his gunmen have taken over a town. And Hackman's character sets up this tournament where, they find out who's got the quickest draw of all the shootists that arrive for this tournament. Well, the tournament turns deadly as Gene Hackman's character says, no, it's not just a matter of who's quickest on the draw, who's left standing when the shots are fired.
Mm-hmm.
And Sharon Stone plays this mysterious woman who, no one can figure out why she's in this tournament, why she gotten in. Well, it turns out Hackman's character had killed her father, played by 𝗟𝗓𝗄, many years before, and she was coming back for her revenge. Again, Hackman's not necessarily in every scene, but God, he dominates the screen. He's just extraordinary in this film.
Well, that's kind of how he was in Wyatt Earp and Geronimo. I mean, with Geronimo, he played General Crook, who was kind of portrayed as kind of an asshole. But I'm sure the real General Crook was kind of, somewhere in the middle because he had a job to do.
Absolutely.
But that's just the beauty of Gene. Sorry, my cat Gremlin is playing us another visit.
Gremlin's perfectly fine. No, I mean, Hackman is just... well, I saw Lana's comment, someone needs to revive Inside the Actors Studio. Hackman appeared on Inside the Actors Studio. I forget what year it was, but that if you're ever looking for something, look that one up. But Hackman is just amazing in this role as John Herod, and there's all kinds of great plots, subplots between the characters. I mean, Russell Crowe's character and Gene Hackman's character share a history. DiCaprio and Gene Hackman share a history in this film. Again, just a great cowboy movie. And go watch it. It's just that good. Just that good. And with that, I'll turn it over to you for number 3.
Well, my number 3 is another John Grisham adaptation from 2003, The Runaway Jury.
Oh, yes.
In which we find it's basically takes place again in Mississippi, as all of John Grisham's take place somewhere in the South. But you have a mass shooting at a brokerage firm, and then one of the people that was killed's widow, sues the firearms manufacturer. And you have Gene Hackman playing a character named Fitch, who is a jury consultant. And basically he's playing dirty pool because he's being paid by the firearms manufacturer to eliminate all of the jurors that might be sympathetic to the widow, and he wants them to rule in favor of the firearms company. So it's a good portrayal of Gene Hackman as a pure asshole villain. Not sympathetic at all.
Yeah.
Just pure asshole.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is it's set, if I remember correctly, it's set in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
The cast surrounding is just amazing. You had Rachel Weisz, John Cusack.
Yep.
Yeah, John Cusack. And this is one of those films when two old buddies get to work together. Dustin Hoffman plays the attorney representing the woman who's suing the gun manufacturer. Oh. And Hoffman and Gene Hackman were best of friends going back to the 1960s when they were like staying in each other's apartments in New York City, trying to land their first big roles or whatever. But yeah, Hackman and Hoffman have these they're brief but great scenes together.
Oh, the final scene where Hoffman's character has figured out that what Fitch has been doing, that he's actually on the take of the firearms manufacturer, and he threatens him and says, "You either retire now or I'm going to ruin you."
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. Guess what? He retires.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, Hackman plays a thoroughgoing SOB. There's not a thing about this man you ought to like.
There's no arc. He's not redeemable in the least.
Nope, but boy, does he play a smarmy SOB brilliantly in this film.
Yeah.
Until the end, you feel like Hackman's in control. He's ruthless. He'll do whatever he has to do to help his client win. And it's only at the end, again, with a beautiful John Grisham plot twist, that you see Hackman's character just come totally unraveled. And it's something to watch. It truly is something to watch. So, great movie. Yeah, cat bomb. They say we have gremlins in the equipment. Well, in this case, just saying.
They don't hide around here.
No. Well, for me, number 3, I said that Quick of the Dead was based on another character. Okay. Number 3 for me is Unforgiven, the film that got Gene Hackman his second Academy Award. This is a great movie. It's a Clint Eastwood movie done in the early 90s. Matter of fact, give me a second here. Yeah, 1992. It's a Clint Eastwood movie. Eastwood directs it. Eastwood stars in it. It's also got Morgan Freeman. It's got Gene Hackman. It's got Richard Harris. Hackman plays the role of Sheriff Little Bill Daggett in this western town. And he keeps law and order, but he does it with a very hard hand. And you don't know whether you ought to like this guy or hate this guy. And that's a lot of the theme of this movie is the moral ambiguity. You have Clint Eastwood's character, who's a retired gunman brought out of retirement to do a job, to go kill a man or get revenge for some very untoward behavior of women. And you have Morgan Freeman playing the role of his riding buddy. It's a great film. But Hackman's character, again, it's one of those, the moral ambiguity of his character, Little Bill Daggett. You don't know whether you ought to hate this man or like him, because he's got a little bit of both, and again, I understand why he got the Academy Award. He should have. Hackman was brilliant in this. And it was it's one of those Westerns that's not a typical Western. And I think that's the thing as a director, Clint Eastwood was trying to stay away from. But man, Eastwood nailed it. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, Eastwood got Best Director for this film. So yes, great film, not your typical cowboy movie. So yeah, if you want a great cast, great plot, brilliant cinematography, you need to go watch this one. It's a good one. So with that, I'll turn it over to you for number 2.
Well, I'm going to cheat with my number 2 because I'm actually going to put 2 movies in it because they're all both the continuation of the same story. Richard Donner's Superman 1 and 2.
Yep.
You don't get much better. 1978, 1980. You don't get much better than Lex Luthor. Gene Hackman's classic portrayal of Lex Luthor, opposite Christopher Reeve as Superman and Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. You don't get much better than that. In the first one, he is the absolute alpha villain, though with a lot of comedy relief. And in part 2, he's kind of playing second fiddle to the Kryptonians, Zod and the crew, but he's still great, and he's still he's likable, but he's evil. And in fact, when they did Superman Returns, and I know that movie didn't get a whole lot of love, I happen to like it. Even it was a direct sequel to Superman 2. They actually, when Kevin Spacey portrayed Lex Luthor, he modeled his entire performance after Gene Hackman.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Yeah. This, I mean, there had been television series of Superman, radio series of Superman, but this was the first time somebody had tried to put Superman on screen. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, there's been the Man of Steel, there's been the Zack Snyder movies, et cetera and so on. I'm sorry. the Superman movies that Richard Donner directed in 78 and 80 are the definitive Superman movies.
Now you can throw 3 and 4 out the window. Gene Hackman
Yeah.
was actually in 4, but it's a pile of shit, which is why I didn't put it here. But Donner had nothing to do with either of those.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you take Marlon Brando, Christopher Reeves, Margot Kidder, and Hackman. And Hackman is just, again, he's chewing up the scenery, having a load of fun doing it. I mean, to me, he's Lex Luthor. And yeah, I mean, I understand why Kevin Spacey would have based his character off of the way that that Hackman portrayed Lex Luthor.
And Kevin Spacey and Gene Hackman, they have a lot of physical attributes that are very similar.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, I mean, but Hackman is having himself a load of fun in these films. He really is.
And yeah.
And you realize, you know, he truly does live up to the creative genius that the Lex Luthor character is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Truly.
But kind of bumbling. When they portray Lex Luthor as a supervillain, I think it's a little bit disingenuous because he wasn't always correct in what he did. Even in the comics, he's quite bumbling. So Gene Hackman just captured that perfectly. Yep,
absolutely. But yeah, brilliantly done, brilliantly acted, and the soundtrack, if I may say, if you're a John Williams fan, the soundtrack for the Superman movies is just spot on. You know,
wasn't that was God Deliverance?
Ned Beatty. Yeah, Beatty. Absolutely amazing in the film. You know, just really, just again.
And I agree. They played off each other really, really well.
Oh yeah, Ned Beatty and Hackman. Oh God, they were brilliant together. And who was it who played Miss Tessmacher?
It was Parker Posey in Superman Returns, who was also brilliant, but I can't think of her name. Miss Tessmacher.
Hang on.
It's Tessmacher.
I can see her in my mind's eye.
I can see her. She's sexy. Oh, God.
Hang on. This is killing me now. Hang on. I just about got it.
Valerie Perrine.
Yes. Who's still alive, by the way.
Yep.
Still alive, still doing her thing. But yeah, it's Valerie Perrine. Thank you. Yep. She played a wonderful Miss in a supporting role. I almost forgot this. Larry Hagman.
Yep.
I had almost forgotten about that until we started talking about this film. But he plays a supporting role as well. Jackie Cooper's in this as Perry White. And I forget the name of the kid who played Jimmy Olsen.
I mean, let me just look up the cast of Superman.
Yeah, may as well.
I mean, I know the majors like Beatty and Hackman. Let's see. Let's see. Cast. I'm on.
Oh, come on, people.
Okay, here we go. Marlon Brando is Jor-El. Gene Hackman is Lex Luthor. Christopher Reeve is Clark Kent and Superman. Jeff East as teenage Clark Kent. Ned Beatty as Otis. Jackie Cooper is Perry White. Glenn Ford is Jonathan Kent.
Yeah.
Trevor Howard as one of the Kryptonian elders. Of course, Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. Jack O'Halloran as Non. We're also talking about some of the Kryptonians that show up in part 2. Yep. Valerie Perrine as Tessmacher. Maurice Schell as Von Da. Terrence Stamp as General Zod, who was brilliant in part 2. Phyllis Thaxter as Martha Kent. Susanna York as Laura. Mark McClure as Jimmy Olsen.
Yep. Yeah, again, it's a cast. Yeah, I'd forgotten about Glenn Ford. Jesus. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that again, one of those movies that's got everybody in it. Mm-hmm. Just
even in bit roles.
Yeah.
We're going to pop a megastar in a bit role.
Yeah, exactly. So
we're going to pay him $5,000 for 1 hour's work.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, that was Brando. Yep. Brando, I forget how much he made off that film, but he's like, yeah, I'm doing this one for the paycheck. I don't care. I really don't care.
And then it ended up being one of the biggest hits of the world. He ended up making a cameo in Superman 2 because they used his he did the recordings of Jor-El.
Well, and Superman Returns, when Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor finds the Fortress of Solitude.
Mm-hmm.
He again, Marlon Brando makes an appearance in a cameo, from pre-recorded stuff from the Donner movies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, absolutely great movie. So, well, my number 2, you stole Superman from me, but that's okay. That's perfectly fine. No, don't worry about it. It's perfectly fine. Crimson Tide, 1995.
Never seen it. Gonna confess. And I know it's one of those is it Tom Clancy or Michael Crichton? Michael Crichton.
I believe it's a Michael Crichton. Yes. Hans Zimmer musical score. Story was written by Michael Schiffer and Richard Henrik. Absolutely brilliantly done. Denzel Washington, Gene Hackman. And if you've never seen this film, I'll give you a quick summary of the plot.
Mm.
Hackman's the captain of the USS Alabama, a nuclear submarine. Denzel Washington plays his newly minted first officer or executive. They are underwater, and due to an accident, they are cut off from communications with the Pentagon, Central Command, etc. But before they're cut off, they get half of a transmission that a Russian is fueling nuclear missiles. Well, now you have the great dilemma. We have half of the story. We don't have the other half. And now you have two men, both of their positions actually correct. One thinks, I've got to launch the missiles because I got this message that says they're fueling their rockets. The other one says, but no, we don't have the other one confirmed. Both are needed in order to carry out the action. Both of them cannot agree on it. And at the end of the film, in a cameo by Jason Robards, who plays an admiral at command base, he says, you have set up the worst dilemma. You're both right and you're both wrong at the same time. And the tension that goes into this film in that setup, Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman are brilliant in this movie, both of them. But Hackman, oh yeah, he's right, but you can't like the guy. You can make the same argument about Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington is right, but he's wrong too. So again, a movie with a lot of plot twist. It's got a great supporting cast. You had Viggo Mortensen's in this movie. James Gandolfini's in this movie. Whole bunch of people. So yeah, I recommend it to anybody. It's just a really great movie. It's a Jerry Bruckheimer production. Go watch it. It's just that.
I'll put that on my list. I'll watch it this weekend. Yeah. I just had never seen it. I've always heard about it, but I've just never seen it.
Really good. Really good. So I'll turn it back over to you for your number 1 selection.
Number 1, 1968's Bonnie and Clyde, Except No Substitutes. This is my first exposure to Mr. Gene Hackman. I think I was 8 when I first saw this film, and it came on. Even though I had seen Superman and understood that was Gene Hackman, my really first time that I saw Gene Hackman and really loved Gene Hackman was in Bonnie and Clyde, because it was one of those afternoon movies that would play, Saturday and Sunday in the afternoon on cable. And I loved it from the first time I saw it. He plays Buck Barrow, who is Clyde's older brother. He plays opposite Warren Beatty, who plays Clyde. Faye Dunaway as Bonnie. Michael J. Pollard, who's a great character actor, one of the great character actors of the 20th century, plays C.W. Moss. He plays opposite Estelle Parsons. Dub Taylor. Gene Wilder actually has a bit part in this as a hitchhiker that Bonnie and Clyde pick up, and he drives them so crazy that they dump him and his girlfriend out because they're talking their ear off. A little bit of comedy there. But Gene Wilder steals this movie as Buck Barrow. He really does. Great, just playing a good old boy redneck who, even though they're out doing criminal things, you have to sympathize with them and understand they're kind of like modern day Robin Hoods, or that's what they're set up to be. Even though I'm sure it wasn't like that in real life, but yeah, just great. And this is, I believe, his first Academy Award nomination, though he did not win. But he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a motion picture at the Academy Awards.
Yeah. Now I got to confess, I've never seen Bonnie and Clyde, so yes, I will have to put that one on my list. Absolutely.
Yeah. Great, very very limited cast. I mean, there's extras, but they're all good, great character actors, every single one of them. And the end of the movie is the most shocking, where of course they deal with Bonnie and Clyde. The feds deal with Bonnie and Clyde the way the feds often deal with people, and they just fill them full of holes.
Yep.
I believe that car is in a museum somewhere. I want to say it might be in the Smithsonian, but it is the car they were shot in. And they say it had thousands of bullet holes in it. Thousands of bullets to get rid of two people.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely extraordinary. But yeah, great film. And like I said, I may have never seen it, but just on the basis of who's in it, the story, everything else, go watch it. It's just that good. Well, for me, number one is Hackman's movie that didn't necessarily launch his career, but confirmed he was a superstar actor. 1971's The French Connection. Great film. I recommend it to anybody. You've got an all-star cast: Hackman, Fernando Rey, Roy Schneider, Tony Lobianco. Just a great film. The story revolves around two New York City policemen. Hackman plays Popeye Doyle, who is a real-life New York City narcotics officer, and his partner, who's played by Roy Schneider. During that period, the heroin was a big deal, especially coming in from Europe, or more particularly coming in from France. Popeye Doyle, played by Hackman, is tasked with trying to figure out how is it getting into the country and shutting down the French Connection. Well, how it's being brought into the country is one of the most unique things you'll ever watch. And if you've ever wondered how to deconstruct a Lincoln Continental, this movie gives you some ideas on how to make that happen. Hackman's portrayal of Popeye Doyle is intense, as was Popeye Doyle in real life. And in the end, this movie spawned a sequel, The French Connection 2. But this is the movie that solidified Gene Hackman as a bona fide movie star. He won his first Academy Award for this film. The car chase scene under the New York City elevated train is a classic in American cinema. You want absolute bedlam? Watch it. That scene by itself is worth the movie. But go watch The French Connection. Absolutely one of the best movies of all time.
I agree with there. I'll put it right there. I'll one up that one and say that I put that car chase and the car chase in Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
Where they're playing Smoky Hollow Breakdown, Foggy Hollow Breakdown, the classic
Foggy Mountain Breakdown. Yeah.
Two very classic car chases.
Yeah. So yeah, and you'll notice, and we've both gotten to the end of our lists, but this man's career, like I said at the beginning, spans 40 years. We could go on with great movies that this man's done.
There's still a ton. We didn't touch Wyatt Earp. We didn't talk about Geronimo. We didn't talk about Marooned, The Hunting Party, Doctors' Wives,
Behind Enemy Lines.
Crime Cut, Bridge Too Far.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Scarecrow with Al Pacino, which is an early 70s movie that they did. I mean, there's just No Way Out with Kevin Costner and Sean Young. I mean, my God, this man's career. Yeah, I think you said Bridge Too Far. If I remember, you did say Bridge Too. Okay, yeah, Bridge Too Far. I mean, it's amazing.
French Connection 2 was another good one.
Yeah, French Connection 2. Yeah, it's just it's just amazing the amount of film this man's been in over the years.
And we didn't even talk about his television or his stage career, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Get Shorty, another great comedy that he was in. So I mean, yeah, it's just really remarkable.
Does he win the award for the most Grisham adaptions?
Possibly. Another great. I can't believe I left this one off my list. Twilight.
Yep.
Paul Newman, Susan Sarandon, Gene Hackman.
Not the vampire one for you young folks.
No. Not for you youngsters out there. Not the Team Bella, Team Edward crap. We're talking about a film for mature adults. I can't believe I forgot Twilight, and I went to the theater to see that one. It was that good. So yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm going to write that one down. I might go watch that one in the near future. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, for almost 40 years of movies. He's 95 years old, and we're still blessed to have him in America. So if you've never watched some of these films, I mean, and I'm sure Tracy's going to back me up on this, go do it. Yeah, you're going to treat yourself to one of the best actors in America.
Yeah, absolutely. And watch his, I believe it was a 1990s interview with Larry King, which you showed on your channel recently. If you really want to see a glimpse of what he's like, go watch that. He talks about patriotism and being a true proud American, and how you have to put person over party, which is a huge thing right now. We're having a discussion when he talks about him being a staunch Democrat, but when he met Ronald Reagan, he knew he had to support Ronald Reagan because he had America's best interests at heart. Just a beautiful human being who's a true patriot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, and that little clip from the Larry King interview where he's describing why he likes Reagan. I mean, Hackman might have been a lifelong Democrat and freely admitted that he was, but this is one of those things where this was a different era of Hollywood, and yeah, Hackman represents that. So again, watch the films, watch the interviews. You cannot go wrong with a Gene Hackman movie. Especially the ones that we've listed for you.
Yeah, go check those out.
Absolutely.
If you've never seen any of them, start with Superman 1 and 2. I think that applies to the most wide audience. Yeah. And then after that, Hunt for Red October, Poseidon Adventure, if you just want good action adventure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, but yeah, I've had fun just going through this list because it's like, God, these just so many great movies,
Well, I am being cat bombed. She's telling me that the time has come to bring this thing into the station because she wants pets. So we'll bring it into the station. Thank you everyone for joining us. I am Tracy. I run Gen X Marks the Spot. Check me out on YouTube and on X. And Brian, tell everyone where they can find you.
Again, you can find me on YouTube at Talking on the Front Porch. You can also find me on Rumble at the Front Porch Conservative. I'm on Twitter at the Front Porch C1. Like I said, I've got some interviews coming up next week. Dr. Robin McCutcheon, economist from Marshall University, will be on Monday night, and then Vets Talking will be on Tuesday night. Both of those are at 7 p.m. Eastern. So please, if you would not mind, a sub to my channel on both places is greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Go do it. Go do it if you haven't. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and we'll see you again real soon. Until next time.